Thank you for joining us on this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinoxe Television, live from our headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. I am Bable Jonathan. In our top stories in this edition of the news, at least 20 persons have been arrested and at least 10 injured in clashes between security and defense forces and traders at the Douala Central Market. The traders went protesting against what they consider as forceful eviction from the area they have been doing business for years, and that provoked a standoff between the traders and the security and defense forces, notably the police. Today we'll bring to you details in this edition of the news. Killings, destruction of properties and other atrocities continue within the framework of the close to 5-year-long armed conflict in the northwest and southwest regions of the Republic of Cameroon. We'll bring to you updates in this edition of the 6 p.m. newscast. Stay with us. At least 10 persons are now under medical attention in different health facilities in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. They were injured in the clashes with security and defense forces earlier today, and at least 20 of them were arrested. The traders were protesting against forceful eviction, notably at the Douala Central Market. Details in this report by Smart Chikan Gabriel.
It was another ugly day in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala, as traders of the central market clashed with security forces as a result of the use of tear gas. The effect on the innocent civilians was visible. One almost ate off her tongue. First aid treatment was given before she was rushed into a taxi. At the same time, another teenager was also ferried into a taxi urgently. Apart from the affected cases, others were seen with minor injuries. The confrontation also led to the arrest of some traders who allegedly fought with security forces. The clash between these two persons was caused by the forceful eviction of traders selling on the road. The irony was that the same area where these traders were asked to live was marked by authorities of the Douala II Council for them to buy 100,000 francs CFA before resettling to continue their business. At least 20 persons were arrested. About 10 persons, reports say, were injured as a result of the confrontation.
Highways across the Republic of Cameroon continue recording deaths in accident. In the last accident on the Douala-Chang highway, notably around the area known as La Falaise on the way leading to Chang, at least 5 persons died in that accident, as Immaculate Fogo reports.
They were traveling to Douala, but their journey ended up abruptly on La Falaise d'Nchang in the Menua Division West region. They are victims of the latest road accident on Cameroon's highways. 5 persons died on the spot while 10 others got severely injured. The accident that occurred on Tuesday, May 25th at about 7:30 was caused by a brake failure. According to sources, the driver asked passengers to step down after he noticed that his brakes were faulty. Few minutes later, he asked the passengers to get back into the vehicle because he had already managed the technical fault. But just few passengers agreed to get into the vehicle. Immediately as the vehicle kicked off, it later found itself in a ditch. The injured victims and the corpses were later transported to the Chang District Hospital. It should be noted that it is on the same spot that 55 persons died on the 27th of January 2021.
Parents of an 8-year-old child are demanding justice following her assassination in Koteng in the Upper Sanaga division. The young Francine was raped, killed, and her body parts chopped off. Details in this report by Fomi Armstrong Sanda.
Some 25 kilometers away from the town of Yabasi, in the Nkam division of the littoral region of Cameroon, Mabum is a blessed but unfortunate village. The village alone combines a beautiful and an ugly story. The beautiful story is that Mabum is blessed with a dense natural forest and a vast agricultural land. There is enough land here, and even 1,000 hectares you can have for free. Build your house and live here. And they want people to come get lands, construct and live in their village because their youth have been running away.
Les jeunes désertent le village, c'est parce qu'il n'y a pas l'évolution au village.
Youth have been running because there is no progress here. We do not have roads, schools, hospitals and electricity. The road from here to Yabasi is very bad. How do you get your produce to the market if you are into agriculture here in Mabum?
Qu'allons-nous faire pour épargner de cela pour la ville?
Le chef-lieu du département de Nkam même d'abord est enclavé.
The Nkam divisional chief town Yabasi is also enclaved. From here to the town of Lum is almost impossible. That is why youths are running away from this area. Apart from the economic reasons, the massive rural exodus in Mabum village is also provoked by social factors. At one moment, the entire Nkam division had only one secondary school in Yabasi, which even had the problem of lack of teachers. When we found ourselves in town, we didn't want to come back here.
Quand on avait l'opportunité de se retrouver en ville, on y restait. Voyez-vous, l'Nkam est entouré.
You are right. The Nkam division is surrounded by two absorbing regions, the Douala and the Mungu regions, which are polar regions. Our people prefer to stay there for advanced and better life. They do not want to come here. Most of our elites you see today came in from Lum and others from Douala. Beyond economic and social reasons, the massive movement out of Mabum village is also attributed to witchcraft. It is true that about 20% run away from supposed witchcraft, but the real problem is on enclavement. A phenomenon which has been on for just so long that local traditional officials of the village say things have changed.
Mais je voudrais leur lancer l'appel pour leur dire que les choses sont en train de changer.
Apart from the call to the population, the people of Mabum wants the government of Cameroon to send in people to exploit their land and forests and in turn provide basic social amenities for their village.
Now we go back to this human rights violation case in which parents of an 8-year-old girl are demanding for justice after their daughter was assassinated. For me, Armstrong Sanda has more.
It was a horrible scene in Koteng subdivision in the Upper Sanaga division of the central region of Cameroon. 8-year-old Francine Ngan was found dead in parts of her body, horribly mutilated at a place known as Camp Nanga in the town of Nkotem on May 18, 2021. The maternal grandfather with whom she lived says the lifeless body of Francine was found naked, lying face down in the pool of her blood, raped through her anus and the vagina, with parts of her body like her heart, veins and her breasts chopped off and taken away.
Donc il y avait une blessure ici, une blessure là, et violée devant et derrière.
The grandfather Mvogo Fosten further says young Francine was assigned on her habitual daily duty to fetch water when she met her death.
Quand elle rentre de l'école,
Shortly after she came back from school and rested, she took her container to go fetch water. But when she didn't return, I went there and could not see her. Together with my neighbors, we extended the search and searched everywhere to no avail. Repeatedly searched this area till 10 p.m. with no trace of her.
jusqu'à 22h30, on ne fait que fouiller.
A massive search on that day, which yielded no fruit until the following day when her body was discovered. Mvogo Fosten further says her body was seen at about 9 a.m. the following day when he was at the police to report her disappearance. A neighbor, according to the grandfather, noticed something suspicious before her disappearance.
Une de nos filles.
Emanuela says she saw when Francine transported the first container full of water home. Passing with the second container, she returned just immediately as if she didn't arrive home.
Le trajet ne lui permettait pas de rentrer aussi vite.
With the water, she questioned her on that, but Francine didn't answer.
Elle a seulement ri. Elle est partie porter le troisième bidon.
Elizabeth Ngonomvogo, mother of the victim, wants justice for her daughter and security reinforcement in the Upper Sanaga division.
The wave of crimes in Koteng and Banjok is alarming. A lot of frightful looking strangers in town, suspicious moves all over. What has happened to my daughter is unheard of and unforgivable. I want justice.
An investigation has been launched to establish the exact circumstances that led to her horrible demise and also track down those responsible.
Several persons have been reported dead in Wainama in Jakiri and in Kumbu in the northwest region of the Republic of Cameroon. Among the dead victims of the Anglophone crisis are soldiers and civilians, and the number of persons dying in the crisis has continued increasing by the day. And besides that, the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa and the SOS Torture Litigators Group in Africa are filing a complaint to the United Nations Committee Against Torture against Cameroon for acts of torture perpetrated by the security forces. The victim is an English-speaking Cameroonian citizen wrongly accused, according to the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa, wrongly accused of complicity with non-state armed groups. We'll be coming back to this in greater details in Talking Points. Time for us to talk about women in the maritime transport sector in the Republic of Cameroon. They are breaking new grounds in a bid to turn down stereotypes concerning the presence of women in that sector, and they brought together a handful of women and young girls in the University of Douala today to drill them on the issues concerning the maritime sector, notably the maritime transport sector, and the aim was to encourage them to get more and more involved, to develop more interest in the maritime sector. And this is a sector that is largely dominated by men, and these women in the maritime sector, these professionals or the maritime transport sector, were telling these women, their peers, that it is not a male thing, because this is the idea that has been running through and hindering some of the women from getting jobs within the maritime sector, from getting employment, getting involved in the maritime transport sector. And they were telling the participants in that meeting at the University of Douala today that they have what it takes to do almost everything that is being done in the maritime sector, including activities that demand even a lot of physical strength. They have what it takes to get involved and to deliver the goods in that sector. And that is what the women in the maritime transport sector, the professionals in the maritime transport sector, were telling their peers today in the University of Douala. We are receiving one of them, Bridget Wupnyonga Nte, is a maritime transport sector administrative staff at the Douala Port Authority. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Jonathan. Good to be here once more.
What explains this gap between the men and the women present or working in the maritime sector in Cameroon today? Very few women are found in that sector.
Yes, thank you for this question. What I want to say is that I'll first of all define what is WIMA. WIMA means Women in Maritime in Cameroon. We are under the leadership of WIMA Africa. We cannot talk about WIMA Cameroon without talking about WIMA Africa, because we are under an umbrella. So, in the maritime sectors, we discovered that this was in 2015 when WIMA Africa was created. It assembled the women in most of the countries in Africa, the women who were working in the maritime sectors in Africa. They assembled in 2015, that was in March 2015 in Luanda, and they talk about themselves. They say women have to have a place to take leadership in the maritime sector. So that is how WIMA Cameroon came about. They came back to Cameroon and they created WIMA Cameroon. In various African countries, you will find WIMA Nigeria, WIMA Ghana, WIMA Senegal, and so on. So in the maritime sector,
is to turn the tides.
Yes,
and get women more and more involved. But first of all, what explains the limited number of women in, especially in leadership circles within the maritime sector?
You know, they always think the administration always think that there are certain things that women cannot do. Like today we were in the university to sensitize students there, to tell them to know that they have a place in future in the port. You saw, if you were there, you saw how a woman, as we've already seen here, you saw how a woman was manipulating a portique. Portique is a machine that carry container. A
very heavy duty
machine that carry container, and that woman can do it. That is what the administration thought women could not do, and that is why we are today trying to let the young ones to know that we have a place. Women have a leadership place inside the port.
And the women, what were the young girls telling you about the impressions they have about the maritime sector? Because it's not only about the administration getting the women into those positions of responsibility, but it's also about the women. What were they telling you about their mindset, the ideas they have about the maritime sector, what is going on, the activities within the maritime sector?
So, you know, the students, they didn't know, they just thought, some of them thought that in the maritime sector you can only have activities inside the sea. They did not know that even administration, they can be involved in administration, they can be involved in the judicial sections. We have judicial section, we have the human resources, we have other sections, banking and so on. So they thought, when they hear of port, they thought that it was only inside the sea that you can walk. No. So that is why we're today telling them that working inside in the port is not only inside the sea. You can also work as an administrative staff like me. You can also work like the men. You can do what men can do. So that is why we're there today. We encourage them to come and to register in the subjects that can lead them to work inside the port.
Away from the administration, what are some of the areas of interest? What are some of the areas where women can potentially be useful in the maritime sector in Cameroon today?
Yes, we have women who are firefighters. What you call marine pompiers. We have women who are firefighters. We have women, though we don't yet have women who are pilots, but we have women who, like the one you saw, who can carry the heavy duty machine. We have
can manipulate the heavy duty machines.
Yeah, we have them. We have women who are directors. Who are directors. in the directorate. We have so many directorates under the head office.
What does it take for a woman who wants to get into this sector, who desires to get into the sector and get doing one thing or the other?
Yeah, you just need to learn. You just need to learn. We said that when you learn everything, everybody can learn everything. You can do anything if you study it. You can do what everybody can do if you study it. So all we need to do is education. That is what we also participate in training, in encourage them to train in the maritime, in every sector of the maritime, inside the maritime sector, in every field in the maritime sector, so that they can be able to do everything that everybody can do. Why not Director General?
Right, thanks very much, Bridget Wupnyongan, Maritime Transport Sector Administrative Staff, Douala Port Authority. Thank you for coming.
You are welcome.
Now we go out of the country to talk about news in Mali, and Mali's interim president Bando and Prime Minister Mokhtar Oune have officially resigned. They resigned after they were arrested and detained by soldiers. These and more in our international news page with Charles Ekome.
African mediators visiting Mali have met senior military figures who carried out the country's second coup in less than a year. On Tuesday, a military colonel who was vice president in the transitional government accused President Badao and Prime Minister Mokhtar Oune of sabotaging the transition. The two men have been held at a military camp since Monday. The ECOWAS team, led by the former Nigerian president Goodluck Jonathan, has an extremely difficult mission and hopes to get the ousted president and prime minister released from military detention as soon as possible. But beyond that, it is not clear what it can achieve now that Colonel Assimi Goïta is running the country and intends to name a new prime minister. ECOWAS and other international bodies could impose sanctions against those behind the coup, but they are aware that could further complicate Mali's road to elections and the promised return to civilian rule early next year. The United Nations Security Council is due to discuss the political crisis later on Wednesday. Meantime, heads of states and governments of the Lake Chad Basin Commission met in an extraordinary summit on Tuesday, May 28, 2021. The summit was the first since the passing away of former Chadian President Idriss Déby Itno. Cameroon's head of state Paul Biya was represented by the Secretary General at the Presidency, Ferdinand Gongo. In addition to leaders of the member countries, representatives from the United States of America, France, Britain, as well as the African Union and some international organizations also took part in the summit as guests. A critical examination of the security situation within the Lake Chad was discussed, as well as issues regarding financial and logistics of the multinational task force put in place by member countries to tackle terrorist groups was also discussed, among other subjects. In a nutshell, the summit was a gathering of regional leaders to re-strategize on the future of the Commission.
And that's it for the first part of this newscast. Talking Point comes up next. Today we are receiving Diwum Emmanuel. He's a civil society activist and teacher. Thank you for joining us today.
It's my pleasure.
And to my left we have Kedia Robert, a politician, member of the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, CPDM political party. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be there. Good to be here. Greetings to all Cameroonians.
All right, I begin with you. In the northwest and southwest regions of the country, killings have continued. Latest information streaming into our studios indicate that several persons have been killed, including soldiers and civilians in Wainama and Kumbu. That's of course in the northwest region of the country. Despite all the efforts that have been put in by the administration and other stakeholders to restore normalcy in those two regions, northwest and southwest, killings have continued. Destruction and other atrocities have continued in that region. What's your analysis of the situation on the ground?
I would first of all like to call for resilience to all the people of Ngoketunja and the people of Bui, because this information, as you earlier said, we haven't gotten any official information from the spokesman of the military, and we haven't gotten any official information from the spokesman of the government. So from now, I will not consider that information to be official. However, we know that as the crisis is ongoing,
we have our own sources on the ground, and we are doing verification of facts. We have not yet had any official statements from whatever institution, whatever state institution, as you indicated, but we have sources on the ground, and we are verifying these facts and these happenings that have been recorded in those two regions. And besides the ones that just occurred, the recent ones these killings have been continuing with explosive devices, giving another color to the crisis.
Yes, for sure, and that is why I'll take this opportunity to talk to all the people of the Northwest and Southwest region that we recognize that there is a crisis. The president, the head of state, President Paul Biya himself, said that it's time for us to forgive and to forge ahead. And he recognized that there may have been some misunderstanding, but to solve any problem, we need to first of all drop arms, and then we'll continue with dialogue. Remember, in the 1961, we had a dialogue at Fumban. In the early 90s, we had a dialogue. Some few years back, we had a Grand National Dialogue, and the dialogue is progressive. That is why the Prime Minister was back in Douala to talk with the member of JCAM so that they can proceed on dialogue, how they can do reconstruction both in the Northwest and Southwest region. So I know dialogue is progressive. Us Cameroonians will keep on talking among ourselves so that we may get to a lasting solution that will bring peace in the Northwest and in the Southwest region.
While dialogue is progressing, Emmanuel, people are dying, men, children, women, soldiers, civilians are dying.
Yes, and it is Cameroon losing, because whether a soldier dies, whether a civilian dies, all of them are Cameroonians. That's the first thing we should take into account. And my condolence to the victims, the family of the victims. You see, I've always said Cameroon is one of the rare countries that pamper the causes and then fight and then pretends to fight the consequences. Because I'll be very succinct with you.
What do you mean by Cameroon is pampering the causes
and fighting the consequences
and pretending to be fighting the consequences? What do you mean by that?
Yes, because from the early stage of any crisis in Cameroon, be it minor or major, they always know what to do. They are always given advice, but they always choose to take the wrong direction. And when it escalates, they now come back to pretend to fight the consequences. It is regrettable that those who caused the pains of yesterday cannot create the pleasures of tomorrow, because those who are struggling to fix the boat now, while the boat is already midway sinked into the sea, it's almost too late. That's why you discover that the killings, the runnings, the destructions, they continue.
But why do you think that government is pampering the causes and pretending to be finding solutions?
Even a nursery school child knows in Cameroon that where we are now, if we call for a ceasefire, just assume that breaking yesterday there was a ceasefire from the both parties for the tempos to cool down. The people you are naming now would not have been dead or killed yesterday. And I want to remind you that all Cameroonians of good faith want normalcy to return, but they want normalcy to return under just conditions. It is time to say that I, the government, I failed. The other party should say I failed. It's not because you are the head of the family that whatsoever you do always proves to be right. It's not because you are the husband that whatsoever you dictate to your wife must be done. People grow, people come of age, and when people come of age, the only thing that brings them to a common ground should be dialogue.
Keja, earlier you were talking about all the things that government has been doing so far with the PM and other state officials, Minister of Territorial Administration, the Minister of Defense, and all the other authorities who have been putting their hands on deck to see an end to the bloodshed and the destruction going on in the northwest and southwest regions of the country. But like Dium Emmanuel, many civil society leaders think that all what government has been doing so far is simply providing cosmetic solutions, pretending to be solving the problem, but rather pampering the cause of the problem.
There is freedom of speech, and people have the right to express it the way they express it, but the reality on ground is not the way we analysts see it, but in the ground is something else. We talk about the cause of this problem. We were one. Even before the coming of the German to annex us, we were one. The German came, annexed us, we were one. It happened with the misfortune, or what happened after the First World War, that we were partitioned between Britain and France. And now we are there fighting Pan-Africanists, people that want to build Cameroon and Africa. Should we be fighting about the Western culture? We should talk about building our own culture rather than saying that the civil law system, the Francophonie system, the common law system. No, for me, I don't see that. We are Pan-Africanists and we should look about building our own country. The head of state have done what it has done. I was expecting to get people's opinion to talk about what the government have not done, because for me, I know the government have done everything that it is required. He has called for a grand national dialogue. People refuse. Those of good faith came, some other did not come, and dialogue is progressive. Dialogue is not a stagnant issue that you think people will go into one room and take 100% decisions there. No, dialogue is progressive. That's why I said the Prime Minister came. We have a special status. The House of Chiefs have been put and the regional house have been put. Now what we should be doing as English speaking people is to empower these institutions that have been put in place, because when institutions are created, the next issue is to empower it, and that is what we need to do. Special status is one of the best. When you talk about federalism, you talk about confederation. When you look at Britain has a decentralized system. Scotland, Ireland, and the rest, they have special status. When you go to Canada, you see that with Quebec, they do have a special status. So the main issue is that we have this special status. All of us English-speaking Cameroonians need to struggle to empower it rather than sit behind and criticizing and doing nothing. Because I realize that most people sit, they criticize, they talk on social media, they sit, but in the ground, you ask them, what are their moves to bring about peace? They won't say anything. Cameroon belongs to you and I. Cameroon belongs to every Cameroonian. It's not all about depending on the government, but it's a general something.
In your opinion, government has done everything that should be done, but the results are not forthcoming. The results, I'm talking about peace, I'm talking about stability in those two regions, they are not forthcoming, but rather we still have killings and destruction going on.
Yes, because we still have some people, all of you here will accept with me, and all our viewers will accept to me, that we still have people that have decided to carry on arms. They go around violating people, torturing people, kidnapping people for ransom. We also have seen this, raping, taking people, like for instance, one of these guys that pick up Divine has more than 20-something wives of people. We saw one of these activists in the diaspora talking about it, that he has more than 20-something girls in his keeping in the bush. These are the things we should decry. There are people that have decided to take advantage with the present crisis we have to carry out barbaric acts, and we should not come out to say the government have not done nothing, the government have not done anything, thereby empowering those people that have decided to pick up for their personal business of ransom, of human rights violation. And we don't talk about them. We keep on seeing the government rather than condemning what these people that have decided to pick up weapons to carry out their gangsterism act. These are the things we are supposed to condemn.
These are the things you are supposed to condemn, Dium Emmanuel.
Yes, you see, Mr. Babila, if we are where we are today, there's no saying that is because people like Kedia, CBDM commercial agents like Kedia, are the ones that the government have been using.
He's a militant of the CPDM.
No.
Not a commercial agent of the CPDM.
Listen.
He's a militant.
These are the people that create division in the country, like what he's just doing. And this is what we are decrying in our beautiful country.
Let's have some order, please. Yes, Emmanuel, go.
You see, the CPDM has a way of doing things. They discovered that they were failing, and they have chosen to use CPDM commercial agents, I repeat, like Kedia, who do not even know the history of his country. I want to correct him on one aspect.
Please, if we must go forward, we must respect some basic rules, please.
Yeah,
he started not a by CPDM commercial agent, but a militant of the CPDM.
He doesn't have a moral decadence. That's why he's doing this on a very big, mighty platform like this. So embarrassing.
Go on,
I would have loved that you restructure your English language. You see, what I'm saying here is, they use people like him who do not even master the history of their country, because he started by saying that we had dialogue in Fuma. Oh my God. Which history of Cameroon teaches us that? I just wish after this program you make your findings. A dialogue has never held in Cameroon. And what happened in Yaoundé, it was a window dressing. It was a monologue. It was a conference between the CPDM officials who went there for their own personal agenda. You cannot come here to tell Cameroonians that, look, say the truth and the truth shall set you free. It is this kind of language you are using here, lies tellings every day, morning, afternoon, evening. You are talking about special status. Can you tell me the content of the special status? No. If I ask you what is in that empty basket, you wouldn't tell me. So don't speak about what you don't know. That's why I want to justify why I use the word.
Just like Kedia, the authorities think that English-speaking Cameroonians from the northwest and southwest regions should put their hands on the deck to support the institutions that have been put in place to make this thing to work, to make reconstruction to work.
Yes, reconstruction is a very good thing.
To bring back peace and stability.
The government again is failing because they are always putting the cart before the horse. Military men, well armed and protected, cannot be falling, and you are talking about reconstruction. Now we are even talking about reconstruction. Where will it pass? The Babaju route that was in program right from 2013 has not seen daylight under construction. Then you are talking about two full regions,
that should be that's the reason for the call on Anglophones to be peace crusaders.
They must be peace crusaders. There I agree with him in total. But now there is no peace without justice. Peace comes with justice. You cannot be beating somebody and then you come out in the public, you lie that you did not beat the person, while the person had bruises all over his body, and you expect him to smile in public. No, it's not done like that, Mr. Babila. Look, like I've said, it is one element that will take the whole of Cameroon out of this mess is the truth. And before I give back the microphone to you, I regret the fact that this thing is prolonging because our brothers of French Cameroon, whom we believe that we got united in one way or the other, are living as though life is normal. I want to think that if the people of the other 8 regions of Cameroon rise up one morning and say, look, our brothers of Northwest and Southwest, it has got to stop, it will stop, Mr. Babila. But so long as they continue living as though life was very normal, I assure you the end of the tunnel will be very far from now.
Kedia, earlier you were indicating that the situation is worsening on the ground because of civilians who are carrying guns and so on, but there are also accusing fingers pointing on the armed forces. For example, the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa and the SOS Torture Litigators Group in Africa are filing a complaint to the United Nations Committee against torture against Cameroon, the state of Cameroon, for acts of torture perpetrated by the security and defense forces against an English-speaking Cameroonian citizen who, according to the center, has been wrongly accused of complicity with non-state armed groups.
Firstly, I want to make this very, very clear. The armed force of Cameroon, they are professional. However, we still have individuals, like even in priests, pastors, and the rest, we still have some individuals that will definitely carry certain act of disorder. And you realize within this crisis, as how this crisis have been going, there are many uniformed men that have been sanctioned. Since this crisis started in the northwest and the southwest region, there are many military men that have been sanctioned, that have been arrested, many of them. That is to show you that the head of state is out for justice. That is why some of them have been arrested. And now there is this complex issue of saying the truth, which at times I see it to be relative at times. When somebody comes, claim to be saying the truth, why the person is not saying the truth? How can we be a teacher and will come to talk to Cameroonians that there was no dialogue in Cameroon, that there was no dialogue at Fumban? How can we say that? You cannot say there was no dialogue. You are a teacher. Is that what you want your children to listen, that there was no dialogue? You went on to say there was a monologue. Whether you call it monologue, trinologue, or whatsoever, people sat together and it is dialogue. That was the meaning of dialogue. When two or three are gathered to discuss. But you earlier said there was no dialogue. Now you are struggling to identify or to do whatsoever that CPDM dialogue or whatsoever, but you said there was no dialogue. You went further to say there was no dialogue at Fumban, and you are a teacher and your children are listening to this. I don't see that to be correct. I will still go further to say that
about the accusations.
Yes, about the accusations, I will also be out to be very clear that as analysts we should be able to say the truth relatively. As I earlier said, we have the military of Cameroon is professional. However, there are some people that have been carrying out negative activities or actions in the field, which most of them have been arrested. And if they have been arrested and being judged, this shows the good faith of the military, of the government, that the government is out to carry out justice to military that go astray. But what I don't get it, honestly, what I don't get is that many people come in platform, they go to social media, but it's rare for them to come out and say, no, these guys that have picked up arms, that they rape our children, they are doing something wrong. They don't come out to say something wrong. I'll be very, very pleased if by the end of this program my brother opened his mouth to say those guys that have picked up arms, that are raping people's children, they are doing wrong. Then I'll be appreciated with his outing.
You said that on several occasions on this platform, condemning killing from all sides. Nobody will accept killing from any side. But Ndigum Emmanuel, just in some few seconds, this case of human rights violations by security and defense forces who are accused by the Center for Human Rights and Democracy and SOS group.
Well, it's just but normal, but I also have a problem with this human rights and SOA groups thing, because what we have seen quite often is that they only condemn. We don't see what is being done practically to find a way out. If at all their report will yield fruit, it will be a welcome relief for everybody. But before I leave you, I want Mr. Kedia to go home and find out the meaning of plebiscite and then get back to me on phone.
Right, Emmanuel, civil society activist, teacher, Kedia Robert, politician, member of the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, CPDM political party. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. Equinoxe is up next.